Hello, 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 and welcome to Singularity Shadow Season 2. And today's topic, relationships. This episode is part 1 of a multi-part series. And it's a series that's kind of dear to my heart, not because I'm out there in the dating world, but because I feel that men and women don't really communicate anymore. And maybe that's something you agree with, or respectfully disagree. But for today's episode, we're gonna do just that. Communicate. My panelists today include 2 women and 2 men. That is, including myself. 2 of these people are in relationships, and 2 of these people are not in relationships. 2 of these people have children, and 2 people don't have children. And 2 people have been married before, and 2 people have not. It's definitely a mashup I have for you today, and I hope that the information that will be provided will be helpful to all of you. So without further ado, I present to you episode 2, Relationships. Oh, one last thing. I want to apologize for the quality of the audio in this particular episode. Not everybody has professional microphones, so there was some feedback at various points throughout this episode. I did my best to edit it out, but I couldn't completely wipe it out without messing with the content. So please bear with me. And without further ado, I present to you Relationships. What is your relationship status?
Okay. My name is Serena, and I'm single. AF.
That's it?
Oh, that's it.
My name is Chanel, and I am in a relationship.
My name is Gary. I'm in a relationship for over 15 years.
We got an OG here. Wow. And I am, like Serena, single as fuck. So, for both of you who are in relationships, what would you say is the best advice you can give to those of us who are not in relationships in terms of not just selecting someone, but in, addressing problem, overcoming that initial rocky getting to know you phase that we all try to just jump past?
Okay, fair enough. I would say it's pretty much started off as to get the shutters out. Start as like friends. I know it's cliche to say, but if being in a relationship, that person does become close to you. And your friendship does matter in it. Doesn't whether it be relationship romantically or friendship as a buddy. Once you get that settled in, then you can actually, it won't be as weird. Because, people going like, what do you like? Well, I don't know. What do you like? Once you get past that part, you gotta find at least a common ground with it. Once you get that, get the ball rolling, and it should sustain that part. Unless there's something common, that's a good sign.
I mean, that's pretty solid. I would say something similar. I think, like you said, that part that everyone tries to rush through, my advice would be not to rush through it. I would say, just don't rush that part. Definitely have the hard conversations early on. I remember, the guy that I'm currently with, I remember very early in, we were just like talking, and he asked me about having kids, and I was like, what does it matter? Like, why are you even asking me that question? And he was like, because that's important. Like, that way we can decide what type of relationship we're going to have. Is this going to be something that I will take seriously or not? Or is it something that, you know, we're just going to kind of like have fun for now? Is this something where we're going to be more serious? Because you kind of like need to know those things. And then I stopped and I thought about it, and I'm like, you really do. Just a little background. I am coming from the perspective of someone who was in a relationship of about 15 years. So this is really my first time dating as an adult. So all these things were kind of new to me. So I was kind of like taking his lead on some things. And I would say that it has been beneficial to really have the difficult conversations early on and talk about like the meat stuff, the real relevant stuff. Of course, you want to have things in common, but sometimes you just want to know where someone's head is at, and you just got to be honest. I think honesty is the best way to go. Honest in what you want to know, and honest in what they want to know. Whatever how you answer them. That's probably the best advice I could give you, because that's really gonna set the foundation for everything else that y'all are building.
So that kind of leads into a question that I was going to save for later, but in terms of honesty, is there such a thing as too much honesty?
I don't think so. I wouldn't phrase it as too much honesty. I think that you just have to read the room. You can be honest without giving too many details. You can be honest without saying the things that will hurt the person, or in a way that they can digest it. And so I wouldn't say it's being too honest. Sometimes people give a little bit too much information, especially when it comes to like sex and stuff like that. You can answer a question without like getting into too many specifics.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, you don't want to like scare off the person right there at the beginning. I mean, if it's like the first date, you don't want to tell them that you got web toes or third nipple, you know. But you should. It also helps to leave some back, because you give that person wanting to know more. If you let it all on at the table at the beginning, you won't get as much. It's pretty much like you know what happens at the end. So what's the point of following through?
So you would say that is more of like a cadence to it. There's a certain rhythm to getting to know someone.
Yeah, you could say that, because that's how mostly. Well, my girlfriend at the time, she's saying like, "Oh, the main reason I got to you because you're so mysterious." It's always like, "What's he thinking?" or "What's he want to do?" Like all that. Yeah, just keep him, not a guessing thing. I don't want you to be like dark and broody, but if you let him like, interested in like, all right, I have this hobby, and then maybe the next date you can go into like, well, what make you enjoy this hobby? What's the story behind this hobby? Or why do you like writing? Or why you have I'll tell them on the first day, I have 15 tattoos. And then probably date 4, you're like, all right, well, this tattoo I got when such and such, and this tattoo. So it's something to keep the story flowing.
So is it safe to say that you guys like mysteries?
In a way, you can say that. Like anybody that you're attracted to, meeting them at the first time, the thought process, well, after like, damn, is more like, oh, I want to know what that person's about, or what can I do to get that person.
What would you say is one of the more difficult issues that you've encountered or you've heard other people encountered when it comes to dating
One is a lack of honesty. I think that, let me just give some background. So I was married, right? I'm divorced. Um, but I have a very amicable relationship with my ex-husband because we co-parent. And, getting out there and trying to date and get into that scene, my mindset changed a lot from in my 20s, and I'm, in my late 30s. I'm more, I'm upfront. You want to just state what it is that you're looking for, what you're interested in. I'm at a point where I don't want to waste time, right? You know what you want, you know what you're looking for. So a lot of times I guess for me, it's just the honesty from the other person, right? If you're telling someone, okay, I'm looking for something serious, I'm looking for an actual relationship, the end goal is, if that's part of the initial conversation, the other person's like, yeah, I agree, that's what I'm looking for. But as you begin that talking phase, then you start to see, if you're paying attention, you start to see different things that will lead you to believe that they're not, well, that they weren't honest about what their intentions were. So I think for me, that's been the difficult part, just navigating through those weeds.
Is it also possible that it's not just not that it's a lack of honesty, but there's a certain unsurety coming from the other person? Because speaking for myself, and I'm going to be honest, in the last 12 months, in the height of COVID, I've been on more dates than I've been in the last 3 years, which I find completely interesting. But one of the common things that I was encountering, the overshare a lot. I know I'm guilty of that too, but I mean, when I mean overshare, I mean overshare. Like, yeah, so I'm gonna go kind of overshare. So, and I say that to say, like, what I started to do after a while, I started not to say much. And I'm more listening, and I'll ask questions because I want to know more, because I want to know if you're going to overshare, because I want to know if I need to run. So I'm looking at it from the perspective, it's not that I'm being dishonest about my intentions or anything like that. I just looking at it from the perspective of, yeah, I'm just trying to figure out if you're just a bit on the crazy side. Can I say crazy?
I mean, like Chanel, right? Like she said, learn to read the room, right? In that engagement, in that encounter, you're checking for some cues as to whether or not you ask a certain question, or you give a certain follow-up, or you provide a little more in-depth response as to something that that could be a shallow response. Some people do let their crazy out in the very beginning, and it's helpful because that allows you to make an informed decision to run. And sometimes it's subtle. It'll take time to really chip away and figure out whether or not you want to continue getting to know that person.
Who do you think have it easier? At least in our age group. Maybe younger it might have been different, but in our age group, who do you think have it easier, men or women?
Assuming we're all in the same age range? I don't know.
All regards, I would say women would be easier on the sense of they're still courted. You know what I mean? I mean, there are women who have come up to me and said, "Hey, I like you. Do you want to go out, get something to eat sometime?" And fair enough. I'm like, "Oh, that was very hot." But it tends to be, I would say, nowadays, 85%. Guys going first to the women rather the other way around. I think women in our age range are more acceptable to tell you, like, hey, yeah, I like you. I'm not gonna play around the bush and be like, oh, well, maybe. No, they said, yeah, we can do that, or no, I'm not interested.
I asked that because, like, for me, primarily, I was using apps to date. I'm terrible at approaching people in person. Like, I'm very terrible at that, and I know at least of the few male friends that I have, because I'm, like I was telling you earlier, Gary, I'm terrible at making male friends. But the few male friends I have, it's literally split down the middle. Some of them are like, they'll walk up to a woman and walk away with her phone number, and the other ones are like, they're like me. I can't. Yeah, we can't do that. So, like, I find from my experience, especially going through the dating app experience. First off, there's way more guys than women on those apps, because I see the same profiles all the time, all the time. Hell, even on some of the apps, it'll be like, okay, I'm on Bumble, said no to her on Bumble, go on Hinge, it's the same woman. Like, I just said no to her on Bumble, so I don't. Yeah, no. Like, it's the same population. And I think this kind of plays on what you were saying. I think women still have an advantage when it comes to dating, because, there's still the expectation for guys to pursue women. So, it's like for every woman that approaches a guy, there's probably like 5 guys that approach a woman. So they have more ability to make options. I mean, the counter argument to that is, yeah, what kind of guys though?
Right, that would be my counter argument, because it seems as though we have the advantage in terms of people approaching us. However, when it comes down to it, do we really have the advantage? It's like we're put in a society, or we're put in a society with the mindset that men are to approach us as opposed to us approaching men, because there are all these preconceived notions and ideas of the type of woman that approaches a man, right? So we're now put in a position, and I was actually talking to my boyfriend about this recently, we're actually put in a position a lot of times where we now, instead of having the tools to pursue the man and the type of man that we would want, we're taught to attract that type of man. But the thing about that is that we can attract the quote unquote type of man, but we can also attract images. So then we think that the thing we did worked, but instead of getting the man that we were trying to attract, we got the imposter version of that man, if that makes sense.
Can you describe one of those imposters? Like, give an example, so to speak.
A bum.
It's really simple, right? So you're like, okay, I want a man that has a lot of ambition. And you carry yourself in the way that we're taught or we're told or we're advised to carry yourself to attract that type of energy. And what you end up with is a guy who is pretending to have ambition. And because you are taught these things to attract that type of a person, when that guy who's pretending to be ambitious might be really good at pretending, you might believe it because you're like, oh, I did the thing worked, here's this ambitious guy. And then he keeps up that facade for a little bit, and while you're attracted to that ambition that you think is ambition that's really fake and false, you start liking other things about him. You start being attracted to other things. So now that thing that you set out to get, then you realize it's not really real. But because you like other things, sometimes you tend to compromise. Like, all right, I know this is what I wanted. This is what I got. I like all these other things. So it's like it puts us in a position. I said that whole long thing to say, being the ones who are sought after does not necessarily give you an advantage.
I would have to agree.
Okay.
Not too long ago, I was told that, and this is, someone of the opposite sex, that I am fiercely independent, and this made him feel that he couldn't bring things to the table, I guess, in a way to meet whatever standard he thought that I had. So when you think about it, we set standards for ourselves. We tell ourselves, this is what I'm looking for in an ideal partner. but also there is a need to understand that there has to be some room where you can compromise. But there's a fine line, right? You shouldn't settle because you're just lonely and desperate, but you can really have an honest conversation with yourself about, whether or not what you're looking for, is it unrealistic? Is it, is it too much? Maybe I should scale it back just a bit. You want somebody with ambition. You want someone who has some sort of drive, right? I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting a partner that complements you. I'm at a point in my life where I don't need you to do anything for me, but how can we complement each other, do even more in whatever, our respective interests are. So yeah, it's not, the perception is that we have it easier, but it's not. It's not, because again, we have an expectation, we set these standards, and now we have to kind of weed out, who's real and who's fake, who's genuine and who's not, and then move forward with that process in terms of dating and getting to know folks.
You said something about independent, and I know for a fact, because most of my friends are women, so I've heard the I've heard the statement about men commenting about independent women and what that actually means. Can you just elaborate?
Okay, so just to speak for myself, because independence is relative to, the person, right? I can take care of all my bills on my own without an issue. I don't need someone to help me with them. When I am dealing with someone, I've never been in a position to put my hand out and ask for anything. It's, if you do something, it's because you want to, not because I asked. So with this person, I never asked him for anything because I didn't need to. And, I know some who are aware of that situation and felt the opposite, that I should have presented things to, I guess, to make him feel, make him feel needed like a man. The ego is serious. It blew my mind when I was told this, and but for me, my independence is, I can do this. I've been doing this on my own. I don't need anyone to do it. And it stems from my childhood. My grandmother raised me that way. She was the example. She did it. She handled it. And if there was a struggle, I didn't know about it. So that, that's how I am. And honestly, I'm not going to change that about myself. I don't think that you have to, diminish yourself in order to fit the idea of what a woman should be to a man and vice versa. Again, it's about complimenting. You shouldn't feel intimidated or less of a man because I didn't ask you to help me with my rent, because I didn't ask you to help me with my car insurance this month. Like, I got it. I'm sure there are some men who would appreciate that as opposed to having someone that is just constantly needy. Preference is preference. But, for me, my independence is just my ability to do what I have to do. Assistance.
Yeah, I agree with that. Even I got advice from my mother, and my father backed it up, saying that never be in a relationship where you're depending on a person. If you can easily say, like right now, I live with my significant other, and if we were to break up just out of the blue, the question is, can I still pay rent? Can I still? Because we had a conversation, and sadly said, she was like, "Oh, I would have to move back to her hometown." I'm like, really? So it's on a sense of my thing is, you gotta like be able to say, hey, I got this, especially on our age, we got this. It's just, I don't need you to bring anything in, but on the, I guess, emotional aspect or mental aspect. Physically, we got it down. That's what I needed.
I think part of that, not that I'm jumping to these guys' defense, but I think part of that is the expectations of traditional gender roles. I mean, would you guys agree with that?
Of course. Of course.
Definitely.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that society has reinforced, especially with boys. I mean, I can speak for a boy, you know, but you got to be the provider. You know, you got to be able to take care of your home, and you got to be able to do this and that, and be Mr. Fitsit, and be the Rock, and you
Your
know,
home.
exactly. You know, so there's a lot of that pressure. You know, again, I'm not excusing it, but there's a lot of that pressure. You know, personally, I can't date somebody that doesn't have a job. Hell, I don't even know if I could date somebody that doesn't have a master's degree now. I don't know. I kind of see where Serena's coming from with that, because I kind of feel like I'm dating down.
No, no.
Well, asterisk. There's an asterisk there. I'll explain it later, but there's an asterisk there.
Yeah, because that's not what I said.
So I've dated guys who didn't have their masters, right? I'm not. For me, that's not a prerequisite. You know, college isn't for everyone, and there are other avenues that you can take to build your career and monetize your talent or whatever your skills are. So for me, that's not it. I do agree you need to have a job. You need to be productive at some point in the day, but I don't look at you not having a master's, so yeah, that's dating down. I can't deal with you. That I don't do. But when I say compliment, you know, it's really this is what I'm bringing, this is what you bring, and this is what we can do together. You know, as a unit, as a partnership. That's what I'm talking about in terms of complimenting, and not feeling that, you know, if I happen to make more money than you, that doesn't mean that you're less of a man. You know, I think that culturally, to a point, the idea of a man being a provider is always centered around finances, and that's just a part of it. You know, in terms of helping out in that aspect, but being a provider in terms of being there emotionally, you know, that support for your partner. I've seen relationships where that's completely void. You know, the money is there and everything looks cute, but you know, the emotional between two individuals, it's not there. And how folks stay in those relationships, I don't know. But when I say compliment, you know, that's what I mean. I'm not really talking about looking down on someone because they don't have a particular degree or they're not in a, you know, specific field.
Well,
I think when you do that, when you do that, you're almost blocking your blessings, right? Because there are people out there that are for you that may not be in, you know, on that level educationally. Doesn't mean that they're not a good person. Doesn't mean that they wouldn't bring substance to the relationship. You know, for me, I try to be open about these things and not judge. But you need to have a job. That at least that's a prerequisite.
well, to clarify on the education part, though, for me, like, it's just been my experience so far, and I know that's, to me, it is unrealistic. It is unrealistic to expect everybody to even have a college degree. I mean, I'm not trying to shame anybody that doesn't, because I agree with you. College isn't for everybody. School isn't for everybody. You know, for me, though, it was a matter of common interests. You know, I find that not to say that they don't exist, but I have yet to meet someone that doesn't have a higher level of education, bachelor's, master's, whatever, that I can find some sort of common ground with, at least in terms of like dating potential. Because, you know, if I'm having a conversation about this and it's not interesting you, and then what you're talking about doesn't interest me, you know, I can't see it going anywhere.
Yeah, I was just about to ask, as you were mentioning that, do you feel that limits the ability to have a conversation with someone? I mean, the ability to converse and just carry a conversation is important. Um, even if it isn't a, you know, a topic that you yourself may have a specific interest in, but I'm sure that you could find some common, some common ground, right? But just in the getting to know phase, if you feel that the conversation is dragging, that you have to pull things out of people, that you're trying your best to fill dead air, that in itself can tell you that you're not on the same page. Nice to meet you. Have a nice life. Like, let's not continue this because it's painful. You can't do that. But that goes back to paying attention to, reading the room, picking up the cues and realizing, whether or not this whole situation's even worth your time.
I've had dates with people with degrees, and the conversation has been, in lack terms, boring. Yeah, you have your book smart, but then they didn't know what anything outside of their neighborhood, or they didn't know anything outside of their sorority group, or they didn't know anything outside of their field. So they tend to be like, oh, well, I'm a journalist and blah, blah, blah. I was like, all right, so what do you feel on like movie genres and stuff? And they're like, oh, I don't like movies because they're such idiotic. And I was like, there's artistic in there. There's all stuff. That's like when I was saying with the whole, if you don't find the common ground, any relationship would be boring. And I've been there where the conversation lasts only 5 minutes, and then the rest of the date is just like, oh, so what's your favorite color? Like, I feel like I gotta pry it out of them in order to keep the conversation going. If not, it's just us sitting there eating food, looking at each other.
So how many dates would you say is optimal to trying to weed out those people? Is one date good enough to make a proper judgment?
Sometimes.
Yes.
Sometimes it is.
Yes, there are times. There are the ones that you can be like, yeah. I've walked out of a date before.
I mean, sometimes it's we're not indecisive, right? We know what we want, we know what we like, and really we can assess within the first 5-10 minutes whether it's even worth our time to continue anything. So yeah, sometimes that first date it's a one and done. Nice to meet you, have a nice life. And then others, there is some interest, and you continue to see where it goes.
How do you communicate that it's a one and done? Are you outward with it? And this is for everybody. Like, are you outward with it? I'm not gonna lie. I've done some kind of shady wordplay on the one and done. So I'm not sure if I want to put it out there. Some of the stuff that I've done in the last year, but I do agree that there's certain cues that if you're listening and you're just like, yeah, okay, no. No. What are some of the ways you communicated, even if it's direct, that this is, yeah,
So I won't directly say, yeah, this sucks. So I'll be like, if we're on a dinner date, I tend to like order the check like soon as not even halfway done. As soon as it's like there, she'd be like, "Are we gonna get dessert?" Like, now,
No.
Like,
Nope.
we gotta wrap this up.
Nope. That's more money I have to spend on you. No.
Wow.
I mean,
It is what it is, right? Sometimes being too direct could be mean. I'm very direct. This wasn't a first date situation. This was somebody that, it was about 3 months in, and there was just, an occurrence that made me go, okay, this is not it. I'm not going to continue any further. I texted him and I told him to kick rocks because it needed to be said. It needed to be said like that. I'm not going to go into any real details of that particular situation, but
But you actually said kick rocks.
yeah, I did. I have no filter. But other times it's just, I don't think this is going to work. But it was nice meeting you. I'm sure you're going to find someone, but those kind of things. I've also ghosted, which is not nice, but it happens. It's life. I believe in the block button, so I just block a number and I just keep it moving.
Yeah. For somebody, because Serena, I don't know how you've been meeting people. Like I said, I use the dating apps. And one of my fears with the dating apps is that you don't look like how you look in the app. So that's always, like, I'm always really cognizant of that. First off, and this is me talking. I don't know if, Gary, you could back me up on this. I don't know if this is a guy thing. So this is me talking. Your dating profile should have a face pic, a full body pic, and you doing your favorite or one of your favorite activities to give me an idea what you like to do. So I get put off when all I see is face pics.
But you shouldn't. What if someone doesn't care about your favorite activity? See, you're putting out there what you want to know about other people. But people should be putting out what they want other people to know about them.
Oh, but that's true. But that
right. So what if they don't want you to know what their body looks like?
And that's all well and good. But here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. Men, this guy likes to see what he is, basically going to pursue. Now, Gary, you know me a long time. I don't tend to discriminate when it comes to body sizes. If I like you, I like you. So it's not a matter of I'm afraid to talk to a big woman, a skinny woman, whatever, a short woman, tall woman, doesn't matter to me. If I like you, I like you. But at the same time, if you don't look like how you look in your profile pic, we have a problem. Especially if...
Yeah, well, men are... We're visual creatures, so yeah.
Exactly. We haven't evolved past that part of our lizard brains. So we need to see what we're going to get ourselves into so that we could acclimatize to it.
I don't use dating apps. I signed up for a dating app one time. The moment that I put my profile pic up, and, I do agree you shouldn't, easy on the filters. On the Snapchat filters. No. Right?
Absolutely no filters on a dating app. We hate that.
I put up my profile pic and my inbox, it was disgusting. So it was like grand opening, grand closing. I couldn't do it. Sometimes it goes down in my DM on Instagram. You take a shot in the dark. You never know. But I don't do the apps. I can't handle that. But, dating apps, like anything else, is social media, right? And it can be cruel. So some people who might be on the heavy side may not want to put a full body pic up, right? Because they could be opening themselves up to a lot of unwanted, comments and messages. And that's not what they're there for. You swipe left, swipe right, whatever the mechanism is. You get to know someone. And, when you have that opportunity to meet in person, that's the time to do your full-on assessment and see whether or not this is something you want to continue or pursue. And I think from the dating app aspect, easier for you to dismiss them when you do meet them, right?
Do you want to meet them at that point if you suspect they're catfishing you?
Here's the deal. I don't think that you are going to go out of your way to want to meet every single person that you interact with on the dating app. Sometimes it could just be conversation, and that's all it is, and you move on to somebody else. Because I know people that use the dating apps, and all of the connections don't result in face-to-face meetings or contact. You know, some people are on there just for games. It's entertaining to them. But I understand you have your preferences, but you can't force your preferences on others. If after some conversation and you're showing interest in wanting to take that next step and say, well, let's meet somewhere, of course, in public, because safety first, with masks on, there's weirdos out here. If it goes well, it goes well. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Move on. I get that it's frustrating if you have a preference and it's not being met, but
Oh yeah, and just to go back to the dating app profile, there's way more guys on these apps, way more, which is why I think if you were on it for a week, in that single week, you will probably never see the same profile twice. Whereas like me, I'm constantly getting suggested the same people over and over again. I'll swipe left, swipe left, swipe left, swipe left. And then it'll say like, you're exhausted today's pics or there's no more available, whatever the app says, because each app has their own thing. And when you go back to the app, it's the same people again. And it's like, wow, okay, well, I'll put this down and come back to this particular app in a month. I think there's multiple reasons for that. Just to go off on a slight tangent. One, I think they make most of the money from men, because like for me, I notice now that I stop, I'm on an app called Zeus, and Zeus requires that you pay in order to message people. So I noticed when I was paying for Zeus, I wasn't getting that much attention. But the moment I let my payment lapse, all of a sudden I'm getting daily alerts. This person likes you. This person likes you. This person likes you. So I think they do that on purpose so that eventually I'm going to be curious to find out who these people are. And they're not going to be fully revealing. They'll show you a picture. And you look at it and be like, why haven't you been showing me these people while I was paying for the app? These are people that I actually would be interested in talking to. I pay for the app. All of a sudden, people like these disappear.
They're trying to lure you back in.
right, it's marketing. The bottom line is $1.
Same way that they did with the club, free till like 10, and the guys got to pay like 20 at the door, but those guys will be paying that $20 to get in because they want to see all the women.
And they say women are easy.
No. As a man, I will say we are very easy. I'm sorry, Gary. We gotta tell them the truth. We are very easy.
We're simple.
Very simple creatures.
For y'all, it's simple. For us, we easy, but y'all simple. Okay.
No. I'm saying I'm
y'all
easy.
need to choose better.
I'm saying I'm easy because clearly I'm paying for these apps half the time, so it must be working. Like just paying for the app, and they're not cheap too. Like they're not cheap. At one point in early 2020, I was probably paying almost upwards of $300 on 4 different apps.
What?
Yeah.
Are you looking for a wife, or are you just looking for like companionship?
I am looking for something more long term, but I'm like Serena. I also have been married, and I am open to walking down that road. I am just not ready to walk down that road because the next time around will be the last time around. So, I'm being very deliberate in meeting people, talking to people. But I also realize they make it seem like it's an easy thing. But like, perfect example, I think Bumble is like $50 for 3 months. So you're like, oh, okay, here, I'll pay the $50. Zeus is $70 for the same period of time. Okay, I'll pay the $70. What is another one? OKC, I think, is like another $50, and you get what I'm saying. So it starts adding up, and when you put it all together, it's like, okay, yeah.
Would you say that you have a better turnout on dating apps than in real life? Are dating apps more convenient? Like, is there an advantage to dating on an app versus real life since you've made such an investment?
Well, speaking as an introvert, yes, because like I said earlier, I am not the kind of person like I see Serena in a bar. I like Serena. I see her, we make eye contact, all of a sudden my heart is in my throat and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to go. Like I can't I still haven't gotten over that fear of hey, that fear of rejection. Hey, I like you. I don't know you. I like you. I want to get to know you. And she might just look at me like, because, another thing that has always been told to us, oh, a woman knows if in the first 5 seconds of meeting you whether or not she's going to date you. So it's like, yeah, well, you know what?
That's a lie. It's not true.
No.
But, I mean, Gary, back me up on that one. We've been told that time and time again.
Yeah, like, well, not date you, but I heard sleep with you.
Well, that too. But I think that's part of the dating process.
That's what I heard.
That's part of the dating process. But, if I can't work up the nerve to approach somebody in a bar, if I can't approach Serena in a bar, it's a situation where she will never notice me. So then I get on the train, I pull out my phone, and boom, look, there's Serena again. She's on the app. Swipe right. If she also swipes right, then I know she's interested, so that initial rejection feeling is gone. So now I can say, hey, how you doing? Were you the lady that I saw in the bar? You look familiar.
Not to turn this into a therapy session, right? But I think everyone has a relative fear of rejection, right? It doesn't feel good to be told no or I don't like you and stuff like that. But I'm just interested in, okay, the social aspect for you. You're an introvert. I actually am an introvert myself, but there is also dating apps are not my scene. I just can't do it. They creep me out. I prefer public spaces and being able to mingle in that sense. But if there's a fear of rejection that prevents you from approaching a woman that caught your interest, how do you deal with your approach on a dating app? I get that there's the swipe right, okay, we can link and message, but who you are online is not who you are in real life, right? So there's still that hump you have to get over in terms of that initial engagement, that face-to-face, and that getting to know, because you can still get rejected.
Oh, yeah, but it's easier to be rejected online. And it's easier to reject online because you don't have that face-to-face. And I think that's part of that what they say, 80% of communication is not verbal. So I think that's part of that 80%. That's gone. If I'm telling you I like you, you're telling me you like me, so then that initial feeling of does she like me is gone. So yeah, you like me. Now how do I keep your interest? And when it comes to being authentic on if you're not going to be authentic, and this is me talking, if you're not going to be authentic, then what's the point? And I know there's guys and girls out there that they're not authentic. They're out there for one thing, whether it's a game, whether it's sex, whether, they're just, having fun, whatever, they're not authentic. But like you guys said before, I think we're all at the stage where we know what we are looking for, or rather we know what we're not looking for. So, like I'm past the fun and games point. Like I don't want to play games. So, but I also don't want to waste my time. And I know that about myself, so I'm going to be honest with somebody, I'm gonna tell them, and having that conversation, if it, because you could also tell when the conversation start dying over text. If it takes longer and longer for the person to get back to you, the first thought is, yeah, they're busy, they're working. But then after a while, if it consistently happens, no, you're talking to someone else. Okay, cool. And I'm gonna start talking to someone else as well.
Yeah, but that's $400, man.
That sounds, now that I said that, it sounded a little desperate.
Look at it this way. If you were to be taking women on dates, right? Like on these dating apps, you get to know women through conversation. In real life, you take, typically you would take a woman out to get to that point of conversation, right? So let's say you went out on maybe like 8 dates a month. You could be spending $400.
Which I was, actually.
Dating app money and the real life dating money?
Yeah, because my goal is, if we're...
Be like you.
I mean, when you're single, you got a little bit more disposable income. So, but like I was averaging, especially over the summer, I was averaging a new date every week. Every week, a new date. And so I will meet someone off of Bumble one week, someone off of OKC the next week, someone off of Zeus the next week, someone off of what's another one? Whatever, the next week. So it was costly. Yeah, it is costly, especially with the expectation that the guys got to pay on the first date. So no, but that's been my experience. And typically for the first date, I don't fight it. But if it starts to be a repeated pattern, like there's one particular person I have 4 dates with, and she didn't, not one of those dates did she ever even mention or reach for her wallet.
Because she was hungry. she was doing this.
That's why there was no date number 5.
Right. There are people who do this. You understand? But, the whole dating thing. Me personally, after you do the conversation on the app and you set up a first date, I really do not believe in having to spend a whole lot of money on a first date. A first date, especially in the summertime, there's a whole lot of stuff you can do for free. So we can meet up at the park. We can go to the Guggenheim. We can, there's things that we can do in order to have conversation. I might spend some money on something to drink and maybe some ice cream or whatever. You don't have to go broke. Because again, that first date should really be the indicator of whether or not you're really interested, you two are clicking, and then you set up a second date and maybe even a third. And at that point, okay, let's do dinner at this restaurant. Then that's when you start cracking open the wallet. But that first date, what are we doing? Me personally, if I got all dressed up and spiffy for this fancy first date at a restaurant and I got there and found out you were a bumbling idiot, I'm going to be pissed because I want time. For what? I could have found that out on a park bench.
Yup, for free. Without having to spend the time, energy, and funds to look good. No.
Well, I will say this, and I've learned this a while ago. Best first dates, I agree with Serena. Best first dates, parks and diners. Diners because they're cheap food. And you get a booth, you have conversation. And parks because you can see like there's stuff for you to like just walking around. It's literally a conversation starter. I've never been in a situation where I'm walking with someone and not having a conversation. It's like literally like you're walking with somebody, you're having a conversation. So it's and both of those are very cheap. Very cheap.
Right. And what if I was a man that had to like take women out on dates, I would 100% use the verbiage like, "Hey, do you want to meet up at the blah blah blah?" That is a great way to start things off because it takes the pressure off of you. Not like let me take you out. it takes the pressure off of them. They don't have to feel the pressure of, oh my god, he wants to take me out on a date. Just like casually, yo, do you want to meet up at this place? Do you want to meet up to do whatever? If you guys have a common interest, let's say an artist, oh, so and so is performing next week at like Central Park or whatever the fuck for free. Do you want to meet up there?
Mm-hmm.
Because as opposed to you're taking her out, or because once you get to let me take you out, you are now assuming the role of taking responsibility for that outing. You're taking the financial responsibility. It is now your responsibility to entertain her and make sure she has a good time. I don't think it's wise of men on the first date to be like, let me take you out. You're setting a dangerous precedent.
If she said, let's go out and have food at XYZ, does that mean she
What I would ask, honestly, I would say, are you taking me out on a date? I would ask.
I mean, I did make a woman bring me flowers on our first date.
That's fine. Do whatever makes your little heart flutter, my friends.
There's a story behind that. She owed me.
Sure there is.
She owed me.
I'm kind of weird on the sense of, like, I only had one blind date. Usually the most people that I've dated, it's been people I've known. So, like, when I was in college, it was someone that I probably had class with. I never really met someone random and say, hey, take you out Friday night at 7. So my thing is, like, same thing, introvert. For some reason, I can't lock on to someone, especially if I'm into them. I can't, I guess, have the courage to say that. So by me infiltrating their minds, being that I know them already, I can be like, oh, so they like this, they like that, and I like that, from us working together or from us going to classes together. So then I have a proper way of setting up a date and whatnot like that.
See, I hear you, and I'm much the same way. I want to say a large portion of my exes I actually knew beforehand. And it's always awkward in the beginning, especially if you were friends. So I want to know, like, how do you handle the... Wait, are you trying to ask me out? I'm not looking at you like that.
Like I said, and I don't even put, let me take you out on a date. It's like, hey, such and such is happening. You want to check that out? I'll even put it as like a group thing to, be subtle into it. And, or they'd be like she said about your favorite artist, like, oh, such and such is playing. I just happen to have 2 tickets. You want to go to that? So give the sense of you're extending it to be like, hey, read the underlining, but on a sense, it's like, if anything, I can go home, you can go home.
Okay, so let's flip the script then. What would you say is the best first date? It doesn't have to have ended up going somewhere, but even if it's just a solo first time you met the person, what was the best first date you guys had?
Picnic in the park. And this was the same person that I told to kick rocks months later. But, the first date is the summertime. And we had a picnic in the park. And it was just vibing, just chilling, having conversation, enjoying each other's company. That was a really good first date. But, to each his own, right? Women, just like in previous conversations we've had, we say Black people are not a monolith. Women are not a monolith, right? Because I like something or because I feel a certain way about the dating process doesn't necessarily mean that the next woman is going to agree with me 100%. But for me, I like, a chill atmosphere. I prefer going to, pre-COVID, I prefer going to a lounge, But for me, that was a really good first date. Just picnic in the park.
Well, I would say that actually a walk in the park. I guess following the theme here. But a walk in the park was probably among the best of my first dates. Because it wasn't even planned, like, in terms of, like, walking. We were meeting up in the park, having a conversation, one foot in front of the other, and kept walking, and we just ended up spending 3 hours walking around.
I feel like I'm not even qualified to talk about first dates because I haven't even been on that many. I think I had two really good first dates that were very different from one another, and I can't tell if one was better than the next. So there's this one guy I was dating, and our first date we went to Bryant Park. It was literally like, hey, you want to meet up at Bryant Park because I like to write and he likes to read. So he was like, you write some stuff, I could read some stuff, and we could just kind of like hang out after like spending hours on the phone like every night for like about a week or so, or probably a little bit more. So we got together and we like went to the park and we sat there and just like people watch and lie down on the reading it, and we were kind of like going over the stuff that I wrote, and then it was just like a really cool experience. It was just very, very like laid back, no pressure, very organic kind of situation. The second first date that I had that I think went really well is with my boyfriend. Actually, we would frequently see each other at this place every Friday night, like a little lounge. But we weren't like, we never really had any major conversation. It's just like, oh, hey, what's up? Hey, what's up? Because we had like a mutual friend or whatever. And one night we ended up speaking, like having like a little conversation at the bar. And then, we're leaving. And he was like, well, let me know when you get home, because I would always Uber home. I don't drive. And I was like, okay, cool. So I did. And then we just started speaking, and it turned into this as a matter of fact, that same night while we were speaking in the lounge, he was like, well, if you don't come back here next Friday, we can go to this, because we were talking about one of our favorite restaurants that like nobody knows about. It was really interesting. That both of us really liked it. So he was like, well, if you don't come here, maybe we could just go there next week. I was like, all right, cool. Like, it was so friggin' smooth. I didn't even realize what the hell was going on. I was like, yeah, sure. That sounds like a great plan. And then like, we just ended up like talking on the phone literally about 3-4 hours a night, every single night. The anticipation of seeing each other finally that next Friday, it was just like, oh my God, I can't wait to see you. Like I think the excitement of it had something to do with it. And we like we met up at the restaurant, had dinner, spoke some more. And then we ended up going back to the lounge that we would have been at on Friday nights anyway, and just kind of like hung out. And then I went home and he went home. But it was just like, I think the anticipation of the week kind of was helpful for that date to be so good, because we didn't have like that awkward, so how was your day?
Right.
Like it wasn't any of that, because we had been in constant communication the entire time, and it was like a really good dating. But he dates a lot, so he's a good dater. He did well on taking the lead on that date, because I haven't dated that much.
So, would you say that the important thing in the beginning is communication?
Absolutely. Yeah. Even in Chanel's example, the whole process, that in itself was organic, because there's an energy, there's a connection there that allowed you guys to have 3-4 hour conversations every night and still continue to text, daily up until the next time that you met. When you click, you click. So it's, that's just part of it. Sometimes you do and sometimes you don't.
Definitely. The worst part is when you gotta like think of what to say to someone like Serena said, if it's not organic, then you don't want to force it.
Yeah, I will say that because it leads to awkward moments, especially if you're like, okay, so
I mean, it's the communication and there's the interest, right? Because you can tell when someone is not paying attention to what you're saying versus when they're into, when they're tuned in to everything that you're saying, and they can naturally just follow up and keep the conversation going.
would you say that if somebody is not in tune, it's safe to say that they're not interested? If I'm finding myself having a conversation and, you know, pulling teeth like how Gary described, it's safe to say that I'm not sparking an interest with this person.
Well, not necessarily. Some people are just not good conversationalists, and some people take a while to warm up. Like, I know in my case with my guy, like, we're both chatty people. He likes to talk, I like to talk. And then we also had common interests. So it's easier for us to be able to be like that with each other in the beginning. I mean, obviously there had to be some sort of chemistry, but we're just naturally chatty people and also equally interested in what someone else has to say. So that it clicked logistically more than, the chemistry, right? Like it just made sense that somebody that two people who like to talk and listen to people would have good conversation. Sometimes, I speak to someone, and as chatty as I am, it sometimes I can't, it takes a while to like get into a group with certain people. And these are people that I've been friends with for a really long time, after the fact, after it has taken a long to like open up to them. Some people just aren't like that right away. It takes more than a couple of conversations or one or two dates, which is why I like the idea of communicating before a date.
Like on a dating app?
Like on a telephone. If you could send a message, you could send a text. If you could send a voice note, you could call somebody. It's the same thing. I mean, look, at the end of the day, I'm only messing with you. It's whatever you're comfortable with. Yes, like on a dating app. But you can 100% just kind of like, text someone. And I think it's the little mundane things that make for interesting conversation, or make it so that you feel more connected to someone. For example, you don't have to take a huge chunk of time out of your day. You could be waiting in a line at the DMV and text them like, oh my God, I'm in this line at the DMV. It's so long. I'm so annoyed. That's it. It's really simple. Like, snap a picture of your lunch. Look at what I'm eating. Like, little simple things actually go a long way. Because now you can have a whole conversation. She or he could be like, is that lima beans on your plate? I hate lima beans. Like, why you hate lima beans? What is it? Like, oh, I don't like them because my grandmother used to force me to eat them when I was like, you would be surprised to know the kind of conversation you can have from the simplest text. You know what I mean?
What if no conversation follows?
Then no conversation follows. That's okay too.
What if it's a repeated thing? Like, oh my God, I'm in this DMV. This line is...
Then maybe they're not interested. But what I'm saying is you got to do stuff like this over time to say that someone's interested. Maybe they're just not interested in that.
So you can be interested in someone but not interested in what they're doing.
Yes. Or interested in what they're saying, or interested in what they're interested in. But you could be interested in a person. Like, there are things that somebody might try to talk to me about, and I might just, barring the fact that I think I'm a pretty solid conversationalist, that aside, I could just be like, oh, okay, oh, that's nice, oh. You know what I mean? Like, not everything interests me. Not everything interests anyone.
Yeah, like my girl's, she has like a quirky sense of humor. So we'll be watching something. She will die laughing. But I'm sitting there, I was like, and she looks at me, that's not funny to you? I was like, not, not at all. But I'm not going to knock her for it because she's entertained. So I let her rock. I watch it with her. And I bet there's things like some of the music I listen to, which she's something else with that. She'll be like, "Oh, I don't like that artist," or "They're too whiny." 2 days later, she's singing it in the shower. So I'm like, "Yeah." So yeah, you're right. You don't have to like every aspect of the person. It can be, you can have those moments where like, all right, that's your thing.
Is it safe to say a little message, whether it's a text or a call? Well, first, do you prefer a text or a call? If you're hearing from someone you're interested in. I mean, I think when you're in a relationship, it doesn't matter. It could be a text and a call, text or a call. But when you're interested, when you're starting off.
Depends on the day.
It depends on the time of day. Like if they're at work, clearly you're not going to call them. Or if it's like super late at night and you don't want to be disrespectful because maybe they're sleeping or whatever, you don't want to call them. Or you could text them like, "Hey, are you busy? Do you want to talk?" But I would lead with a text until you understand each other's call patterns. Like I realize people tend to be really funny about being on the phone, and this is romantically and otherwise. People tend to not want to have conversations these days. It's kind of weird to me, but I get it. Some people are just like that. I would definitely start off with a text and feel out the person, like feel out their willingness to have a conversation on the phone and when it's convenient for them.
I agree. I think the art of the conversation is lost because of technology. It's so easy and convenient to text. And I don't have a problem with texting. Sometimes, I tell my ex-husband sometimes he'll call me and I'm like, this could have been a text. Like, what are we doing? When it has, for anything that he needs to ask me about. But, getting to know someone, yeah, I would prefer a phone conversation. I do want to hear that person's voice. To me, it does make a difference in the conversation that we're having. That's part of the understanding, right? Listening to tone and inflection and all of that. But, time and place. So if we're both at work, it doesn't make any sense for you to pick up the phone and call me. It would be preferable for you to text. And then when we are available, then, I would like to call you, or you can call me and we can have a conversation.
So, question. Since you mentioned that, this was not last year, sorry, 2019, I think. I was dating somebody who was terrible at communications all around. And I know these people exist. I've some of them are my friends. But, I mean, really terrible at communication. This is the worst by far I've ever experienced. I would text them on Sunday, "Hey, good morning. I hope you have a wonderful day. If you're available, give you a call later, 2 days go by. She texts me back. "Hi, thanks. My day went great." Like as if I text on Wednesday morning. So how is somebody supposed to perceive that?
I don't know. Maybe I'm just an upfront person like that. I'll be like, "Is there a particular reason you're not responding?" Or in like a less, I guess, offensive way, probably like, "Hey, did you see when I sent you that message how many ever days ago?" I would directly ask. I wouldn't sit there and try to, ascertain anything from their behavior. I would directly ask the question and see
busy.
what they had to say. I was busy. Oh, okay. And then you take it at that. They were busy and they didn't see it.
Always get that person that says what they say. "Oh, I'm not on the phone like that. Blah blah blah."
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Mind you, they posting up stories, IG stories.
I know. So then, if that's the case, you could say, you could ask them if they feel uncomfortable texting, or if they'd rather not have a conversation. Ask them what's the best way to have a conversation with them. Like, what do you think is the best way to have a conversation with you? Do you want to talk in person? Would you rather talk on the phone? Do you like to talk on weekends? Like, ask them when is the best time. Like, oh, that's cool. I'd really like to be able to speak to you. When is the best time to reach you? How is the best time to, or how is the best time? How is the best way to reach you?
So I think the takeaway here is, not to assume or put expectations on other people in terms of how they communicate with you. As Chanel said, just be direct, ask. Because in all honesty, I may not be available to talk to you, but if I feel like sitting on my phone and posting on Instagram, I can do that because it's my phone.
Yep.
I can do what I want. I can come off the phone with you and say, I'm tired. Talk to you tomorrow. And then you see me active on WhatsApp. So what? I'm tired. I'll talk to you tomorrow. And I'm going to be on WhatsApp.
Yes.
But yeah, be direct. The whole relationship, dating dynamic is folks are just assuming, right? As opposed to just being direct and asking questions. I think that you're giving yourself more of a headache than you need, right? Working yourself up over something that you don't have to. And again, if it comes out that they're just not interested or they're not that into you, then okay, chuck it up and move on. As opposed to continuing to waste your time every other day, you're sending a text and you don't get a response for 4 days later.
I don't know if any of my listeners are like me. And I'm not saying this is a good thing. My texting habits are very reflective. So I give the energy that I get. And I'm not saying that's a good thing. I don't think it's a good thing. But, I'm still struggling with that aspect of like trying to determine when I should and shouldn't whenever I meet people like that, because on the one hand I want you to know that I'm interested, but on the other, if it took you 5 hours to respond, okay, I'm gonna text you back with 6 hours. It's cool.
See, now you're just being petty, right?
No, I mean
so you gonna wait 6 hours and I'm gonna give you 8, right? I'm the queen of petty.
And you want to text her, so just text back. Like, it's like mind-boggling. I don't understand it. And like, it's so funny, right? And I'm glad you said that, because like I mentioned, like, now starting to really, really date. I mean, I dated in between here and there when I had like breaks or whatever with my previous boyfriend, but I think now I'm so like, I'm always amazed at the games that people play. I'd be like, but why would you do something like that? That seems so counterproductive. Like, I want to, because here's the deal, right? You would not be so annoyed with it if you didn't want to text her. Okay, so if you didn't care when she responded, then you would not feel the need to be like, oh, word, so then I'm not responding. Because it would not be an offense, therefore you would not be offended, therefore you would not feel like you had to retaliate somehow. But so the fact that you had the need to retaliate says right away that you want to speak to this woman.
Yeah.
If you're now like, all right, so you texting me now, I'm gonna wait 8 hours to text you back. Who are you hurting? She clearly does not mind not texting you for a long period of time. She's all right with it. If you're not okay with it. So how is that doing anything to her? You're torturing yourself. That shit makes no sense to me, that people operate that way. And it's not just you.
No, it's not. And you're right. It's not.
A lot of people do that. And I'm like, but who are you hurting? Yourself.
No, but you are absolutely right about that. And I'm not talking about, this is what was established, because, when people are working, especially when you're getting to know, because at work, it's hard to reach me. It is, Some days I can get back to you really quick, and some days I really can't. I really can't. But I'm talking about after you establish a period of communication and like, oh, well, she's off today. Let me text her good morning. And it takes forever. So, and I chalk it up to, okay, this person's bad at texting, but there's always that lizard part of the male brain. Gary knows what I'm talking about, and I guess that's where the pettiness comes from. But the lizard part of the male brain that says, "Oh, cool, okay." To answer your question, I think that's where that comes from, and it's yes, it is hurting if she's totally cool, or he, and if any women is experiencing this. But if they're totally cool with this, then yeah, you are hurting yourself. And honestly, I do agree a conversation needs to be had. Like, is it a situation where we need to talk on the phone as opposed to texting? Stuff like that. What's your preferred method of communication? But for me, in the digital age, you have to show some sort of baseline interest, and it's already difficult as it is before COVID trying to show interest in a digital age, but it's even more so now where people are meeting virtually. I actually had my very first virtual date, and it felt like a Zoom meeting. It's not to say that she was lovely. She was beautiful. It just, meeting virtually takes away from that interaction aspect, because I realized from that experience, I'm a physical person. I need to meet you. Even if it's 6 feet away in a mass, I need to meet you because I need to read your body cues. I cannot read your body cues through a camera. I can't. I can assume, but I feel like I'm in a meeting, and it's difficult. So dating in a virtual environment, and it's already difficult enough as is, which is why I feel like you gotta work extra to show that you are interested. I think that's where emojis came from. You got to show that just a little bit extra, that what. No, when I said that you look good, I wasn't saying that you look good as a general statement. I'm saying that I like you and you look good today. So you got to put that extra emphasis in it, and it's almost like spelling out your feelings. So not all of us are good at that, and not all of us are good at determining when to do that. So, and I think that's part of the problem. So if I'm doing that, or if I'm misjudging when to do that, that might put her off. Or if she's doing the same thing, that might put me off. So and I think it just comes back to what Serena and you were talking about.
Yeah, because there's no intimacy within the text or through conversation. Like, you can't. I know it sounds weird. You can't like smell the person, or like you can't like see like the hands or anything like that. Yeah, I can't really get that from digital age nowadays.
I mean, in these COVID times, with everything, we have to adjust, right? Work, school, personal life, dating. So you had your virtual date. You have a couple of more, continue to converse. But you can make an in-person meeting happen. You want to be safe. You both schedule time to go get a rapid test. Make sure your results are negative. And go someplace where you guys can safely social, distance and still enjoy each other's company. If you want to get to that point to do an in-person meeting. It's just a matter of making adjustments to our current environment. It's not ideal, but there's ways around it.
I don't want to keep you guys any longer, but I want to just thank you guys for taking this opportunity to share your thoughts on this.
Thanks for having me.
Actually, I would love to see some of the situations that people have gotten themselves into, especially in the last 12 months. I would definitely like to see that. especially feedback on virtual dating, because for me, I that's a non-starter for me. I think that was a one and done for me. I can't see myself doing it. Not saying that I won't do it again, but I can't see myself doing it. I'm a physical person. I need that. So
I think a good thing to talk about next time would be how COVID has affected your relationship, whether good or bad. I think that's a good thing to talk about, because while you are dating during this time, those of us who are already in relationships, like if we're in a situation where one person is more cautious than the other, or just how COVID has changed the dynamic. If both of you are afraid to be outside, or both of you want to be outside all the time, or one person wants to stay inside and one person wants to go outside, those things kind of like do impact your relationship, and it changes a lot of stuff. I think that would also be something you want to touch on.
This quarantine got real for many relationships.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Super real. Some people made it, some people didn't. It would be an interesting topic to cover.
And especially those who got locked up together.
Damn, locked up.
Yeah, you know what? It's interesting. I heard someone talking about it again. The dynamic, right? Pre-COVID, you work, you have your activities, you have your schedule. You both are on this constant path, right? And it's working. Then all of a sudden, COVID disrupts all of that. So you're no longer going outside to work. You're home. You are constantly in each other's space more than you've ever been pre-COVID. And you start to now notice things about your partner that you never noticed before. They are now more annoying to you than they were 6 months ago. It's real, and it's worth the conversation. It's interesting to know that relationships have either blossomed or...
I mean, I really want to expand on that now, but I'm sure you guys are speaking of people that where their relationships literally like went supernova.
Yeah, I have. But I also have one that's like real crazy. Like, pretty much my friend she started dating the guy, and they ended up quarantining together, which they still are. So after I think she only knew him for 5 months when they quarantined together. So it's been an interesting conversations to have with me.
That's pretty heavy right there, because it's like you really don't know the person after 5 months.
You're like just getting to know someone, and now you got to be in the same places. Like you said, like you got to work from home. Now it's like I wake up being like, "Oh, you're there." Like, can you go to the store or something? Go get kidnapped.
Go get kidnapped. It's harsh.
Lucky enough for me and my girl, we're essential workers, so we have to be out there. Yeah, it's dangerous, and we take the precautions coming back home. But might be a different conversation if we were both in the house.
Exactly. I don't live with anyone. It's just me and my daughter. But I definitely hear the stories. So actually I know someone who it kind of worked out well for her. I don't think he moved in because of COVID. I think he moved in just before COVID, and it just worked out. And now they like have a baby, and they're all cute and stuff. I mean, it worked out, like you said. Some people had like a really shitty time. Some people did well. It brought some people closer together. It pushed some people further apart. It strengthened some bonds, it destroyed some. So it's really like one of those super circumstantial things. But it was definitely a pivotal moment in, I think, everyone's relationship.
Yeah, it's worth exploring for sure. And well, on that note, thank you all.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Definitely would like to do this again. So I'll send you guys some probably some